step. You don't want to move very fast. You want to try to keep something between you and your target.
Tom Orr, the legendary star of American Pickers, has spent decades uncovering hidden treasures, forgotten relics, and priceless artifacts in barns, attics, and storage spaces across America. His expertise, keen eye, and infectious enthusiasm have turned the mundane into the extraordinary, and viewers have come to expect jaw-dropping finds from his adventures. But even someone as experienced as Tom Orr was caught completely off guard during a recent visit to a seemingly ordinary barn. What he and his team discovered in the barn loft wasn't just unusual, it was astonishing. A find that left everyone speechless and quickly became the talk of the town. Barns, especially old ones, are full of history. Rusty tools, antique furniture, and forgotten memorabilia often lie hidden beneath layers of dust, awaiting the eyes of a skilled picker. But this particular barn loft held something far more extraordinary than a collection of vintage items or a forgotten heirloom. The discovery was unexpected, intricate, and valuable, challenging even Tom's seasoned judgment. Friends, fans, and fellow collectors were stunned when news of the find broke, sparking curiosity, speculation, and amazement. What makes this discovery even more compelling is the story behind it. It wasn't just an object. It was a piece of history, wrapped in mystery, and connected to a larger narrative that few could have anticipated. The moment it was uncovered, the reactions of Tom and his team revealed genuine awe, disbelief, and excitement. This wasn't just another item for a collection, it was a moment that reminded everyone why the thrill of discovery never gets old. Even for experts like Tom Orr has spent his life uncovering hidden treasures. But even for someone with decades of experience, the discovery in that barn loft was unlike anything he had ever seen. As the owner of American Pickers, Tom has developed a reputation for spotting value where others see only dust and decay. He has walked through countless barns, attics, and storage spaces, sifting through layers of history to find items that tell a story. Yet, when he stepped into this particular barn, there was an air of the ordinary that suggested nothing remarkable awaited him. From the outside, it looked like any other rural barn: weathered wood, a sagging roof, and the familiar scent of hay and aged timber. But as Tom began exploring, he noticed subtle hints that this place was different. The loft itself was tucked away, accessible only by a narrow, creaking ladder that tested both balance and courage. Tom had climbed countless lofts in the past, each holding its own share of hidden gems, antique furniture, vintage tools, old signage, and sometimes collectible memorabilia. But this loft had a peculiar aura. There was an unusual weight to the air, a sense that whatever lay inside had been deliberately hidden, protected from view for decades. Even Tom, who has a keen eye for valuable items, paused for a moment to take in the scene. Dust motes danced in the sunlight filtering through the slats, and layers of forgotten belongings created a maze that hid the loft's true secret. As Tom began carefully moving objects aside, it became immediately clear that this was no ordinary find. There were boxes stacked meticulously, crates marked with faded handwriting, and crates that hinted at something far older than the barn itself. The air of mystery intensified with each step, and Tom's excitement grew, tempered by the careful approach he knew was necessary to preserve the integrity of whatever lay within. He had learned through experience that the most valuable discoveries are often the most fragile, and the most significant pieces of history can be damaged in seconds if not handled properly. The moment of revelation came when Tom uncovered the object that would become the highlight of this barn exploration. Hidden under layers of old textiles and miscellaneous items was something completely unexpected. Something that had clearly been preserved intentionally, as if the previous owner understood its importance. Tom's immediate reaction, an audible gasp, and a wide-eyed look captured the magnitude of the discovery. Even his longtime colleague and co-host, who has been on countless pickings, was stunned, struggling to find words to describe what they were seeing. What makes this find so remarkable is not only its rarity, but also the story that surrounds it. Each item Tom uncovers has a history, and this one, in particular, connects to a narrative that reaches far beyond the walls of the barn. It is a piece of the past that had been almost completely forgotten, a reminder that even in the quietest, dustiest corners of rural America, history waits to be rediscovered. The significance of the discovery extends beyond monetary value. It carries cultural and historical weight, revealing connections to people, places, and events that few could have anticipated. The reactions on set were a mixture of awe, disbelief, and excitement. Tom's experience allowed him to immediately recognize the importance, while his co-host and crew documented every moment with careful precision. Every movement, every glance, and every decision was measured. Knowing that such finds are rare and once-in-a-lifetime experiences, the scene in the barn loft became a defining moment, illustrating the essence of why Tom Orr has devoted his life to picking, the thrill of uncovering what others have overlooked, and the joy of bringing forgotten stories back into the light. Once the initial shock of the discovery settled, Tom Orr and his team began the meticulous process of examining the items in the barn loft. Unlike the typical finds he's accustomed to, this discovery demanded an extra level of care and attention. Every object had been preserved with an unusual degree of intent, suggesting that the previous owner understood its value and significance. Tom, who has developed an almost instinctive sense for authenticity, knew that the loft held a collection far more important than anything he had expected that day. It wasn't just about monetary worth. This find carried historical weight, cultural relevance, and a story that begged to be told. As they carefully moved crates and boxes aside, the depth of the collection became increasingly apparent. Tom's eyes lit up with recognition as he uncovered objects that spoke to a bygone era: tools, machinery, parts, and documents that had been untouched for decades. Each piece told a story about the people who had used them, the work that had been done, and the life that had passed through this very barn. For Tom, that's the thrill of picking, finding items that are not only rare but also deeply connected to human history. He paused frequently, taking photographs, making notes, and carefully handling items that could crumble under even the slightest mishandling. The loft, which had seemed ordinary at first glance, had become a treasure trove. Hidden corners revealed small, delicate objects, each one adding to the growing sense of awe. Some items were surprisingly well preserved, protected by layers of dust, cloth, and forgotten boxes. Tom speculated that the previous owner had deliberately stored them in such a way to prevent damage or theft, which only added to the intrigue. It became clear that this was more than a random accumulation of objects. It was a carefully curated collection, a glimpse into a world that had long been forgotten. As the team documented the find, Tom began piecing together the history behind it. The tools and objects suggested a combination of agricultural work and personal hobbies, reflecting a life dedicated to both practicality and passion. Yet among these items were pieces that hinted at rarity, things that were unusual, unique, or tied to significant historical events. Tom's knowledge of antiques and collectibles allowed him to recognize the value quickly, and his excitement was palpable. This wasn't just another day on the road. It was a discovery that would make headlines among collectors, historians, and fans alike. The significance of the barn loft discovery extended beyond the items themselves. For Tom, the story behind the objects was just as important as the objects. He spent time examining inscriptions, markings, and labels, connecting each piece to its origin. It became evident that the collection had been assembled with intention and care, likely over decades, and that its owner had understood the historical and personal importance of what they were preserving. The realization added layers of meaning to the find, transforming it from a simple treasure hunt into a meaningful journey through time. By the end of the day, the barn loft had revealed a collection that would leave anyone speechless. Tom and his team had not only uncovered rare and valuable items, but also a rich tapestry of stories, history, and human experience. The excitement, amazement, and reverence with which they approached each object reflected the magnitude of the discovery. Even seasoned viewers of American Pickers could appreciate the uniqueness of this find. It was a reminder that history waits in the most unexpected places, and that the thrill of discovery never gets old, no matter how experienced you are. As the team continued sorting through the barn loft, the magnitude of what they had found became increasingly clear. What had initially seemed like a simple collection of old tools and crates revealed itself as a carefully preserved archive of history. Tom Orr, whose experience has taught him to spot hidden treasures in the most ordinary places, was amazed at how much had remained untouched for decades. Every item had a story, a connection to the past, and an authenticity that made it invaluable not just in monetary terms, but as a piece of Americana. The barn loft had become more than a storage space. It was a time capsule, preserving the life, interests, and efforts of its original owner. One of the most remarkable aspects of the find was how much had been deliberately stored. It wasn't random accumulation. It was organized chaos, with items packed in crates, carefully labeled, and tucked away to survive the passage of time. Tom's sharp eye quickly identified pieces that were rare, collectible, or historically significant. These weren't everyday antiques. They were artifacts that reflected craftsmanship, ingenuity, and a connection to a bygone era. Each discovery brought more excitement, as Tom realized he was uncovering a story that few others would ever get the chance to see firsthand. What made this discovery even more compelling was the human story behind it. The objects weren't just relics. They were evidence of a person's life, work, and passion. Worn tools hinted at long days spent laboring with care, while delicate items suggested hobbies or interests that required patience and precision. Tom carefully documented every piece, knowing that preserving the story behind the objects was just as important as preserving the objects themselves. He often paused to take photographs, jot notes, and speculate on the history, sharing his insights with his team, who were equally captivated by the find. The reactions from the crew reflected the sense of awe and disbelief that had taken over the barn loft. Even seasoned pickers, who have seen countless collections over the years, were speechless at the rarity and depth of the items. Each corner of the loft seemed to hold another unexpected gem, and the team worked slowly and deliberately to ensure nothing was overlooked or damaged. Tom's experience taught him that patience is key in situations like this. Rushing through could mean losing valuable historical context or even breaking a fragile artifact. By the time the exploration concluded, the barn loft had revealed a trove that exceeded all expectations. Tom Orr had uncovered not just a collection of objects, but a tangible connection to the past, a narrative preserved in wood, metal, and paper. The find was a reminder of why he has dedicated his life to picking, uncovering forgotten history, preserving stories that would otherwise be lost, and sharing those moments of discovery with the world. The excitement wasn't just about rarity or value, it was about the human connection, the journey, and the incredible satisfaction of turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. By the time Tom Orr and his team finished exploring the barn loft, it was clear that this discovery would be remembered as one of the most extraordinary finds of their careers. What had started as a routine visit to a seemingly ordinary barn had turned into a treasure hunt that revealed a rich tapestry of history, ingenuity, and personal stories. The items uncovered were more than just collectibles, they were artifacts of a life well lived, carefully preserved, and largely forgotten by the world. Tom's excitement was matched by a sense of reverence. He understood that these objects represented decades of human experience, craftsmanship, and dedication. Among the items were rare tools, unique machinery parts, and carefully stored memorabilia, each telling its own story. Some had markings or inscriptions that hinted at their origins, while others were so well preserved that they seemed frozen in time. Tom, ever the meticulous collector, documented everything, photographing, labeling, and cataloging each piece. His attention to detail ensured that not only were the objects preserved, but their stories were also recorded. For fans of American pickers, this level of dedication underscores why Tom is regarded as one of the best in his field. He doesn't just find treasures, he respects them, studies them, and honors the history they carry. What made this find especially remarkable was the sense of intentionality behind it. Unlike other barns he has explored, where items are often strewn about haphazardly, this loft showed evidence of careful preservation. Boxes were stacked methodically, objects were protected with cloth or paper, and the collection had clearly been curated over time. Tom speculated that the owner recognized the value of what they had and took measures to ensure its survival. That foresight, combined with Tom's expertise, turned a dusty loft into a vault of historical and cultural significance. The emotional impact on Tom and his crew was evident. Even seasoned pickers who have seen thousands of items over the years were in awe. The loft was not just a site of discovery, but a reminder of the thrill and responsibility that comes with uncovering history. Each artifact offered a glimpse into the past, connecting the present to stories and traditions that might otherwise have been lost. It was a powerful reminder that ordinary places can hide extraordinary secrets, waiting for someone with the right eye, patience, and knowledge to bring them to light. Ultimately, the barn loft discovery became more than just a moment for Tom, or it became a story that captured the imagination of fans and collectors alike. It showcased the essence of what makes picking such a rewarding pursuit: the chance to uncover hidden history, preserve it, and share it with the world. Tom's reaction, a mix of awe, respect, and sheer excitement, reflected the significance of the find. It reminded everyone watching that even in the most familiar, seemingly mundane locations, extraordinary history can be hiding, waiting for someone to find it. This incredible discovery will be remembered not only for its rarity and historical importance, but also for the story it tells about passion, perseverance, and the thrill of uncovering the unknown. For Tom Orr, it was a confirmation of why he has devoted his life to this work: the magic of discovery, the joy of preservation, and the priceless satisfaction of bringing history back into the light for everyone to appreciate.